Okay, I want to say this a little bit here about some of my lyrics. I don't know if I really want to choose the word lyrics. I've realized a lot about the what the linguistics and really in studying language as far as linguistics goes in English. Okay, I've even heard it in certain areas of Spanish. Uh, Very rarely, but other languages as well. Some symbolic, if not only syllables or implications of like English, and would be automatically recognizable if that was like involved at the specific time. And there's likewise, there's something like about the front page news. Seriously, it's kind of like the format, the design of the E involving calculus. Really, it's beyond calculus, although it is a format, a structure of a formula beyond calculus involving the letter E. And it was like front page news of the Houston Chronicle, two times that I am aware of, the Houston Chronicle front page news. And it was showing the language, which would be the USSR, the Soviet Union. And predominantly in English. I mean, it would automatically be like an English language perception of anyone like reading or looking at it, not necessarily reading it or even really able to read it or recognize it as what fluent uh, written or verbal communication means in that sense as far as like any other language other than English, like in North America. But that E, okay, it's like an automatic representation of what is involved with like the USSR as a letter in what they would call in terminology as far as like a relationship of what terminology means as far as like a language and the alphabet. The E would be recognizably so in the Soviet Union, although truthfully the way it's designed in the Soviet Union, and I don't know how true it is truthfully, although it's like a big deal. And automatically I notice it because of certain formats of like what absolute value means to the word algorithm and the structure of a specific formula involving that design of the what is recognizably as the E as a Soviet Union. I mean, it was like front page news, and at the same time, within the same period, it was like the Port of Houston, one of the biggest. As a matter of fact, I mean, it made world news, like for like several months about one of the biggest shipments in the 1980s, somewhere in that time in the Port of Houston, was like the Hyundai Excel and the Geo Prism. Okay, and at the time, I'm sure, it's amazing. When I realized there's an accusation of knowing what the issue is, and really I would not have recognized the accusation of like, you already know, man, believe me, you do, kind of like thing. But like everyone's asking, like, what does everyone know? It's amazing how like using what people have learned in education or degrees or high school or whatever the case may be. It's kind of like something like information being provided. It's kind of like how it is used, and that is what I'm specifically referring to, involving like the GeoPrism and the Hyundai Excel. Amazingly, that seems to have some great significance to some of the information that I've provided in previous like videos, like on YouTube.com, on my YouTube.com channel, Wade ASV PRIDDY. Yeah, Wade ASV, pretty. It's WADE PRIDDY. Yeah, Wade ASV, pretty. Yeah. Okay, it's also like a Texas math thing. Okay, to make that clear. Okay. I'm not real how sure the Statue of Liberty is involved, but seriously, hey, it's that guy. Yeah, kind of like, hey. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so like it's like the Geo Prism. Okay, and the Hyundai Excel. And that E thing, it seemed like it would be with it in the near vicinity of what information was on the local news, as well as even national and like world news. And those were the two at the time that really at the time had significance, truthfully so. I did not recognize the E in the sense of like a format of like a formula involving signal processing beyond algebra. I mean, excuse me, introduced in algebra as an introductory word, not necessarily an applicable use in algebra, although it introduced the word algorithm into what leads to like calculus, and also the entrance exam beyond calculus. The only two levels that I know of is the word algorithm that leads to that formula, and how true that formula is. In the second level of calculus, with that structure and design of the letter E and the format of the formula that goes beyond what the electronic power, in my mind, means to Houston, Texas, or Alphanumerics USA and Pearland, Texas, or USA, or Pearland, Texas home, or certain issues of like WEA International and audio production and like motion picture and the thing about everything everywhere. WEA International, that's WEA, yeah, International. I've known about that for years, and I ignored it. I ignored it because truthfully, I didn't really know anything at all about alphanumerics. It's really, truthfully true, until like 1992, kind of like a Flag Day thing. June 14th, 1992, maybe 10 days, I wasn't counting, truthfully so, and finding, like, looking for answers that really, truthfully, unlike any way I'd ever had before, okay? Okay, truthfully so. Okay, in any case, yeah, ultimately leading to, like, some issues, okay, in the book, okay? Yeah, the Psychic Warrior, America's foremost psychic spy, and to cover up the CIA's top secret Stargate program, really, truthfully so, but, I mean, an international baptism, really? Yeah, for real, okay? Anyway, yeah, so like 1992 has more than significance. But anyway, back to the letter E and the structure and design of the E. And algorithm seems to be like a real big word because truthfully, in the word in algorithm, as far as like calculus, I mean, that I know of, okay? It's not that really I'm like a degreed genius in calculus. Although I am aware of certain aspects of like a scientific notation involving the Texas Instruments calculator as compared to like normal programming involving normal calculators. It would only represent the 0 point E. Although Texas Instruments in scientific notation, truthfully involving calculus and beyond scientific notation that would normally equate to the EE issue. And truthfully, in my mind, I mean so much about international financial management and globalization that would seriously reflect some issues of what 0 point E and programming and calculators mean as compared to like going beyond the norm into the scientific notation of like calculus and even beyond and that word algorithm and structuring what is normally like beyond the programming would be the 0 point E. It's beyond the program for the designated like calculator as compared to like also likewise in addition at a different level with Texas Instruments what was then beyond calculus, okay, would represent the EE, and which is also the symbolic representation on the back side of the U.S. $1 bill, that 0E, that unity, that symbolic representation, almost a spirit of the adoption, even a biblical geographic attachment of the sign of circumcision or spirit of adoption 206, which is normally Brazoria County with the R, the difference between the county and the country, kind of like issue. Almost like the P, you see it, but you don't hear it, kind of like in pronunciation. In other cases, you pronunciate it, but it's almost like you don't really need to see it, but yet that's what it means, okay? With the R between country and county, as per Texas Instruments and the application with the 0 point E in programming as compared to the EE. And you know when you're calibrating the symbolic representation, that would be not, you probably heard it with the alphanumerics of like McDonald's identifying like the hot cafe issue or the 58 and all the possible letters of that like symbolic representation of a Newick compass on the backside of the U.S. $1 bill, and every possible letter with that unity, separate, segregated, and in combination, and in addition in unity, would be like the word of the, yeah, it's even a calibrated like a diameter of a yes, a styrofoam cup. It's amazingly true, yeah. And that hot cafe, not necessarily, that the word nuclei represents 64, although fission and fusion in that sense of what, even like stem cells, or like what normally is identified as possibly what is going to be identified or projected as an identical twin in anatomy and fertility and productivity of anatomy in a sense of like anticipated birth of like twins, and later identified with sonography and all that good stuff. Yeah, truthfully so. Although at the time, like when I was like really into it, I was like looking into the fission and fusion only because of the word equating to nuclei being 64 in American, or music minus A. Not really does it have to be minus A, because like of an audio production, like really being involved with the kind of thing. So like it's kind of like looking into that as well, and the movie, the American, the music minus A, as well as like the Audi thing and what audio production means. So like, is it really missing, kind of like with a binary number issue? Truthfully so. Okay, and the interstate I-10 thing and binary numbers being 1 and 0. automatically, the 39 angel, thing about transportation. Lord Jesus Christ. Once again, okay, I'm going to jump right into, while I'm thinking about it, just to make it clear about something about the Port of Houston and the biggest shipment of the century. How true it is it still stands true as like the biggest shipment in the Port of Houston to this day, which is like 2020, as compared to, I think it's like in somewhere in the mid to late 1980s about that shipment and the something about where I was at, like with the Hyundai Scoop thing, okay. In addition to like years later the Zero Prism, thinking about some issues of cryptocurrency, blockchain, and Bitcoin in the Bicentennial quarter, something in my mind of like the Ark of the Covenant of God or an act of God in 71 in Pearland, okay, and some like biblical reference to like even the Garden of Eden that would suggest truthfully some landscaping issues that even really the alphanumerics of 200 and the 200-year celebration of like the Bicentennial quarter, and the 12 Federal Reserve Banks and what Commonwealth means between the 12 Federal Reserve Banks and equations of like biblical terminology such as the Transfiguration being the Mount of Olives or some like greatness about, believe me, the toilet and globalization and international financial management or some like haloed venue, truthfully, of what Commonwealth means in banking and international finance. Although international financial management may only be like the biggest word as a borrower's terminology as compared to the SAN software that is actually used in international financial management, and the acronym actually going beyond the storage area network into the acronym being like these securities and annuities, which you can find international law. I mean, it's like almost comparable to the first, second, and third world issue of what local area networks, wide area networks, and World Wide Web means, and maybe even beyond that, if that's the difference between being online and offline. Truthfully, I've studied computer science, although the actual command prompt command, truthfully, I've studied, truthfully, I haven't truthfully even had a need to not be online, which dictates what a laptop would normally present. And truthfully, I'm not going to sit here and talk about something that really I don't know about, but I most definitely think I have enough brains about asking like the question that will thoroughly identify, thoroughly like not the idiot speak kind of like question, involving the prompt command and what offline, if that is really on or offline. I mean, truthfully, the prompt command is compared to teleprompting. What that means, even with like a center point energy and like the smart meter. Okay. The thing about it is that truthfully, what I know of some comparable reference to like the communications as far as center point energy and the smart meter, something like about the police beat and the heartbeat of America kind of like issue. I mean, there's seriously, I mean, a huge amount of things that I'm considering involving what the IEE and the 24 and GMAC and like HOA, HOA, and the homeowners associations mean to what having fair use of what property or designation of what how property is being used or projected estimated options and features in that sense and manner. So there's like really a lot on my mind, because there's been certain issues that thoroughly, where I and when I've been at. I mean, there was like so many other things going on that I really needed to take care of, and now I have a lot of time to like apply in the direction of like what it's like meaningful and value what's like on my mind. Okay, so like I'm like really directing that in that direction like as often as possible, and hopefully that won't be a an issue of like importing and exporting communications between whether or not if an access easement is only an issue of tariff of importing and exporting, or what commerce dictates is on or off shore, or a reserve dictated or defined as what that means in reserve, as if you want to call it active or inactive, or what a reserve means, or what a boycott or embargo means to what tariff is or is not, and what any issues of like not necessarily purgatory in religion, but seriously, okay, I'm not laughing, okay. In any case, yeah, I wouldn't call it that, but seriously, I mean, if there's like a waiting period of what that means, yeah, seriously, so I mean, seriously, I'm looking like at every bit of information that I can possibly comprehend within my grasp has been like attainable and accessible during my life, and like thoroughly. I mean, it's amazing. Like when I realized that there's an accusation, like believe me, anyone's like been through high school or like academics, into like beyond, not limited to the associate's degree by far, and or the excuse of being in need of higher education, and defining what getting close to being involved with the circuit means as a master's degree, or beyond the associate's degree that would not be in the excuse in need of higher education, or legal media in the sense of what deposition means in constitutional law. And it's true about constitutional law and the color code of like the black thing and Vernon's, not limited to Vernon's, although the black code being like a black dot on the map is like really the television sometimes in space exploration. And anyone even knowing if they've even been accused of even knowing if they've been accused, or even truthfully even involved with participating in family law, or what family law means beyond business law, based upon what description means of participation in a geographic attachment, if you want to call it business law, attaching circuitry, and what that means, when and where that happens, if there's like any spiritual like thing about like a miracle, okay. Can you believe it? Yeah, like, there's like more to it than, it's kind of like I was talking to my dad before he passed away. I said, Dad, one thing I've learned, truthfully, everything you've ever known in your whole life, it is really happening. It's like everything you've ever known is not really the way it is. And truthfully, I've learned that about going through a circuit, is that many degrees that are involved with whatever the circuit means, where, when, and where. Not practicing and being involved with the circuit might only be the description of the degree itself, not necessarily in the integration or knowing how every degree involved with the circuit actually really works and what it really means and how law is really truthfully used. Not limited to the program of what normally people see on television or what dictates what entertainment is whether only watching it is only the participation of what imagination in alphanumerics means to like Houston or Houston, Texas, being the alphanumerics 112 and 181. Okay, so if it's like an imagination or mirage or an oasis of love of what participation means as compared to actually being involved with it. If watching television or like only listening to the radio only dictates maybe the imagination, not really, what entertainment law, and entertainment law, covers, a huge amount, if not every aspect of law. It's phenomenally man, it is so like a huge expanse, okay, to a normal person life that has not actually participated or involved in entertainment other than watching it and may be so blind to what they're listening to and not even maybe understand the meaning of what professional witnessing means or investigation or or even bureaus in the sense of like what business means at any level of employment or a description of what whether a degree is the issue, a non-degreed, degreed, non-degreed issue, or ultimately getting to a point of what level of what non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization means in real estate for for real, okay? So if there's like an issue of what the FHA and HUD means to like whether if an issue of banking dictates what mortgage means, or like the P being silent, you see it but you don't hear it. Likewise in the word mortgage, or I'm so for real. Don't tell me like the U.S. dollar is like dictating what history is. Is it like a live current affair? Is it like dormant as a reserve, potentially as a projected estimate to like use retroactive presidential administration to the effectiveness of even knowing or even accomplishing a generation, a continual generation of what family, or even what would be the family structure as compared to the presidential, executive, and legislative levels of what maybe many families might not see themselves as involved. What a neighborhood is, what a neighborhood is not, what the commercial building is, and what your television means to a commercial building, or maybe the potential of like gaining a commercial building in a commercial life in the sense of like what buildings means in structure as compared to I don't want to call it taxation, difference between credits and deductions. Truthfully not as compared to what annuities, not necessarily registered charities, but corporate law, annuities thoroughly suggest what annuity is as a given, as it's an earned for every generation. And some positions, if you want to call it the difference between like the U.S. dollar claiming that there is a legal tender for all debt, both public and private, if the corporate structure or the commercial structure dictates what it means is in public as compared to private, or a corporation having annuity or a position as description available for the public, in a corporate level, not necessarily a generic family of descendancy, or serving, through what would be normally identified in most people's minds as family, although like genetic as far as presidential, executive, legislative, and corporate law, serving for, if you want to call it serving for the better of mankind, just providing service in that sense and manner, not necessarily limited to, religious or alphanumeric, so like the 12 tribes of Israel, truthfully equated to 144,000, 12,000 in each of the 12, equating to 144,000, okay? Or, hey, for real, okay? Or the 144 equating to a corporation, or what annuity in corporate law means, beyond family structure, okay? Or like a biblical venue, truthfully beyond the 12 Federal Reserve banks, of degree level, not being possibly accused of like, um, you know, truthfully, there's a religious issue, like truthfully, in a degree level. Um, Whether or not if religion is going to be like a question of like, going beyond what accomplishment has mean in one's life. I mean, going beyond what normal degrees in description means as far as masters in circuitry. It goes far beyond just the description of earning and achieving a degree and actually having whatever value it is accomplishing in one's life, as far as whether it's considered domestic or monetary or gross national product, as far as like, if you want to call it aggregates. And what aggregates means in constitutional law and the mending factors of what like having a right to a simple means, whether it's the idiot's fee of being accused of like knowing and not even have a clue truthfully what the accusation is truthfully what I'm talking about. Okay, or some like spiritually gifted telepathic communication or symbolic representation, truthfully on the backside of the US $1 bill, and that see holy miracle, that I knew it accomplished that symbolic unity. And it is a spiritual miracle, and truthfully it is. It has many meanings, but truthfully, there's more to it than just like, what would automatically, if that would be even looked at as fission and fusion and nuclei, as principle, not necessarily nuclear power, but truthfully so, truthfully not at the same time. Or the stem cell are like identical twins in birth, or what that means in anatomy as compared to even like, networking. What hubs is and is not in space exploration as compared to integration of historic venue of like communications between a rural route, a county road, a street, a lane, I mean, a boulevard, an avenue. What does a hub mean in space exploration? If executive history is dictating whether or not if integration is like only a police beat, or what a ticket means in networking, okay? In that sense and manner, likewise, and some certain networking applications involving nodes, which involves the automatic IP internet protocol. If the IP is only an IP address and it thoroughly represents what a node is, and in anatomy, it also represents governmental terminologies, sovereign immunity and governmental amnesty. What a node truthfully is in anatomy, which is truthfully designed and manufactured to defend the body from like any impurities or and fight off any issues that would like provide a defense mechanism. And likewise in networking, truthfully, as compared to hubbing in space exploration, such as networking as switching and routing, what hubbing is as like comparable reference to like Cisco. Even the toilet paper manufacturer, yeah, Cisco. Pronunciation and spelling, pronunciation the same, spelling the different spelling, different application, pronunciation the same, integration. Okay. Anyway, truthfully so. Okay. For real. Okay. So if there's like an issue with like a IP addresses identifying the distinguishing difference between like what a node is in Orion Performance Monitor or certain types of software that actually identify managing factors of international financial management, or like business and governmental structure, even educational facilities and hospitals. What that means in networking, as far as like anatomy and personal valued information. The way it's designed, I've read and looked at so many factors of like what networking means, okay? And what I've looked at is SolarWinds software involving Orion performance monitoring, and certain government and independent school districts and universities, and likewise with like database administration, including what database administration means in Orion performance monitoring as compared to like Orion Performance Monitor, and uh, the difference between an IP address with oh yeah, nodes in certain applications of like networking and monitoring networking and dictating what is a hotspot in networking, such as a node that needs attention in network operation centers. As a matter of fact, not limited to uh, um, whether it's a cable. Or a wireless, or via VSAT, or whatever the case may be. The principle in so many applications is interchangeable and has meaning when and where you've heard it before. I guess you had to be there, kind of thing. And really, I've looked at like principles in such a way involving anatomy, hotspots, and medical terminology, as well as like computer literacy. Even that halo vinyl on the toilet kind of like issue. I mean, it's like so not funny to me. I mean, the humor is like beyond comprehensible, laughter, truthfully so. But when and where the time is right for, if that's like funny, I mean, it will be beyond, truthfully. I mean, the humor and I don't like calling it intelligence, although the treasury intelligence about the brains. I mean, it's like phenomenally not a joke when someone like finds the humor and laughs about it for real. Okay, seriously, likewise, in total complete opposite. Really, it'll really seriously bring tears to your eyes. I mean, beyond comprehension for real. But yeah, truthfully so. And truthfully, that's hopefully not going to be the case. But yeah, that's happened true. True as it gets, yeah, that's not funny, okay? But yeah, it's so beyond funny, and it's so not beyond funny at all. I mean, it's so like beyond not funny, and so beyond like funny. It's like ridiculously not funny, okay? Whether it's like laughter or crying or whatever the case may be, I mean, it's not a joke, okay? I mean, being happy or sad or whatever, I mean, seriously, it's not a joke whether you're happy or sad or whatever the case may be, okay? So, like all the brains and degrees, like all this beyond expertise of like brains and the masters of like the universe, okay? So, like, I'm looking at all that stuff in that way, okay? In the sense of, in the matter of humanity and fine arts and humanities involving like the entertainment law, most people might not perceive the degree of what fine arts and humanities mean in entertainment. In entertainment law. Okay, so like, I'm seeing something truthfully I did not really anticipate. Okay, in that sense and manner. Okay, so I mean, if there's like services as far as what that means in entertainment, or I wouldn't necessarily call it voluntary, but truthfully, I've said it before, and truthfully, I'm sure that many people, it might not be the most glamorous thing to say, but I mean, it requires a lot of time. And if you want to call it voluntary work, or just the Good Samaritan issue, or whatever the case may be, volunteering. I mean, truthfully, I mean, when it, I'm not saying that finer arts and humanities involving entertainment law is necessarily volunteering. Although at that level, I mean, providing what other might need and might not have the accessibility, although made affordable through what would be identified through entertainment law, in